Warning. Program may contain adult language and subject matter. It is not intended for anyone under 18 years of age and whom is not mature. All views and opinions expressed within are solely those of this program's host, co-host, and guest. They are not intended to reflect those of any other persons or organizations, past or present. All subject matter discussed is not intended to be taken seriously and is only meant for entertainment purposes only. It's the Big DC Show! News, sports, politics, religion, and everything else. Talk radio was meant. And now here is your host, the man himself, the living legend, Big D. Warning, the program you're about to hear may contain adult language and subject matter. It is not intended for anyone under 18 years of age and whom is not mature. All views and opinions expressed within are solely those of this program's host, co-host, and guest. They are not intended to reflect those of any other persons or organizations, past or present. All subject matter discussed is not intended to be taken seriously and is only meant for entertainment purposes only. It's the Big DC Show! News, sports, politics, religion, and everything else. Talk radio was meant. And now here is your host, the man himself, the living legend, Big DC.
Hey, everyone, welcome. It's me, it's the Big DC. Welcome to my show, the Big DC Show. It is Friday. Today is July 12th, actually 2 days away from my birthday. 3:45, getting started a little bit late today, but that's okay. Today we're actually going to be talking about conservatives, liberals, independents, your government. And today I have a very, very special guest with me today. He's probably one of the most knowledgeable and respected people on Spreaker today, and his name is Dino Simpson. I'd like to bring Dino in right now.
Hey, what's up, man? I almost feel weird, though, man. I don't think anybody's ever introduced me like that.
Well, that's just how I view you. You are probably one of the most knowledgeable and respected people on Spreaker today.
Well, I enjoy it, and it's a fun place to be, but definitely glad to be here. Hey, you had mentioned before, by the way, your birthday was on the 14th?
Yes, it is.
That's weird, man. That's my son's birthday. Not my 3-year-old, but my 9-year-old.
Well, tell him I said happy birthday to him.
He's excited.
Oh, yeah. As I said, today's show, like I said, it's about conservatives, liberals, independents, your government, and things like that. Now, a lot of people, and I'm sure you've probably heard it, they say I have a lot of liberal ideas. I've actually been called a liberal, but I'm more of an independent than anything.
Well, but see, now let's just right off the bat, the first thing I have to say is I think that's part of the problem that we have nowadays is the fact that everybody, instead of listening to ideas, whether they're good or bad, they have to label those ideas.
Right.
And that's part of the problem. Because, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I probably take from a whole bunch of those political plates, and that's
right.
how I make up what I am today. There's some things I have liberal views on, other things I have conservative views on, and then other things, like you said, I'm just independent because I happen to think both ways aren't right. So,
right.
That would be my first thing I'd say.
Well, I'll tell you, I was actually listening to someone else's talk show here on Spreaker the other day, and they was talking about, Obamacare and different things like that, and talking about, how employers are going to end up laying people off and all this. And they even started talking about, maybe the employers sending jobs overseas like they've been doing. And I just made a comment. I wasn't saying that it should be done. I was just asking, well, what would happen, if, you penalize an employer for laying people off, because of that 30-hour limit. And you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Well, now I'm going to be honest with you. Obamacare, I've read a little bits and pieces. It's a huge, huge bill, first of all. Like you might add, a lot of people don't understand. It's not just like a 1 or 2 page piece of paper you're going to get through, read, and be like, oh, I understand it all. That thing it's huge. And
right.
I don't know about the 30-day thing that you're talking about, but I do know that there's a lot of other questionable things in there, and a lot of things that make a lot of people on both sides upset.
Right.
So that's the one thing I'm finding. It seems to be a lot more bipartisan when it comes to criticizing Obamacare.
Right. Now, well, the thing, what this gentleman said, I said this in his chat room, And, he come back and he said, well, that's probably the biggest liberal idea I've ever heard. And I thought, okay, that's fine. You can say that. And then he went on to say, well, you are a liberal. And I thought, no, wait a minute. I'm not a liberal. I might have had a liberal idea.
Well, but see, that's a lot of times that happens, and I don't know who you're speaking of. And in all honesty, it doesn't matter because a lot of people end up doing that because of someone has that idea. They have to pigeonhole them into that in order to make themselves feel better.
Right.
It's a really weird thing that it happens a lot, but like I said, there are definitely things that I have liberal, views on. And with Obamacare, I don't know where I stand. Like I said, I'm not done reading it all yet. And before I try to go off and talk about stuff that I don't know, I will say that so far I'm not happy with it. I don't know if I fall liberal or conservative on that view. I haven't really looked into that. But I'll tell you this, that they call them death panels because that's what people have to do when you're talking to other people. You got to make things flashy in order for them to feel like someone's going to remember it. So, instead of talking about what they really, means, instead of saying that, you're going to say death panel. And a death panel, oh, well, we don't want that. We don't want someone saying who lives and who dies. But, it is like that and it isn't like that. And that's what I'm coming to find out. And that's what bothers me the most about it is right now, we have the ability to have the freedom. So if we can get a life-saving operation, we're going to get that life-saving operation. We don't have a group of people, and this is kind of what's proposed in this bill, if you will, the way that it's all set up and to order to cover everybody, in the United States, it's set up like that to where it seems like there's going to be that sort of panel. And me personally, I'm completely against any legislation playing God.
Well, I was talking to my wife about this the other day, and, she was, talking to me about it, trying to explain it to me, because I get a little hot-headed with my wife when it comes to her trying to tell me something. But this time I sit back and I listened. I didn't say a word. I listened to her. She goes, it's like this. She goes, it's like this. She goes, take someone like me, her, me, whatever, working 40 hours a week. And what's going to happen is, with this new Obamacare that comes in, it's going to cut her down to 30 hours a week. I shouldn't say it's going to cut her down. It's going to force employers to pay higher premiums, insurance premiums, and things like that. So she can get health care because her company doesn't provide it for her.
But look what they go through now. Like there's things established right now. And this is the argument I give to other people. This is what I said. I don't really know where I stand with this. But even right now, there's instances of that same thing happening.
Well, right. But the way she said it was, it's going to force the employer to, have to pay higher insurance premiums for full-time employees, 40 hours or more. So to get around that, they'll cut the employees down to 30 hours a week. And that's what I meant. That's what I meant by the 30 hours. Anybody out here who's
worked in a Walmart or worked anywhere where it's more of a big chain, you'll find, this is stuff that I went through as a teenager when I worked for Walmart and Kmart. They had these same issues going on. I used to get 29 and a half hours a week.
Right.
Planned purposely just so I didn't reach the 30 so they'd have to start paying for my health insurance.
Right. Well, see, what she's saying to her, on our case, is that someone like her or me, because of being cut down to 30, we're going to have to go out and get a second job to make up for that because we're not going to have that income. And I understand how that's bad. But now, I understand that. But now let's take a look at a guy who, and I'm going to use my nephew Joe, who's at home right now, and he'll be lucky. He works for McDonald's. We all know what McDonald's restaurant is. Everyone's got one in their town probably. He's lucky if he gets 30 hours a week. He's lucky. Yeah. This is a guy who sit at home for 3 weeks because he could not afford to go to a dentist. He would have to pay for it outright. But because of Obamacare, and this is what he's told me, because of that, he's now going to have his teeth taken care of, something he would have never been able to do. Now, this is a guy who right now is ready to vote Democrat because of it.
Well, okay, yes, and this is why the Democratic Party is traditionally, and I don't mean this against your cousin in any way. I'm just it's more of a figure of speech. But the Democratic Party has usually gone more towards the less fortunate in life, if you will. In that case, like you said, McDonald's barely gives them the hours. That's the reason why he doesn't have the insurance in order to go and to do that. So I'm not trying to be too rude, but I'm just saying that's how these things are sold. Because yes, it makes perfect sense, and it seems like like a great thing. Man will be able to, it changes a person's life in that instance, whether it's teeth, whether it's glasses that someone hasn't been able to afford, or, you know, whatever the case may be. It definitely is a life-changing thing. But as Americans, and this is why I'm trying to tell people to try to do what I'm doing right now, is read through the bill yourself, know everything yourself, so that let's make sure that this isn't just a selling point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not to sound weird, and I'm not trying to compare this in any way, but well, I guess I am, but I'm not trying to go specifically here. I'm not taking this far. It's just a good example. But remember, the Jews that were put on the trains were told it was going to be a better life, and they sold that to them absolutely. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the whole propaganda behind that was it worked. That's what got them there, and then we know the rest of the history. I'm not saying it's exactly like that.
Right.
I just want to make sure that it's not like that.
Right. I understand that. I'm not saying I support the Obamacare bill. I don't support it. But, I'm just trying to show you from a different point of view. And here's the thing. We all know elections are usually close. I mean, there's been a lot of close elections. And I'll tell you, a lot of these close elections could be decided, and we all know how the Electoral College works, but they could be decided by people that never vote. I mean, they just don't vote. And in my opinion, there is a lot of people that's going to get insurance because of this bill, and a lot of those great numbers that will get that insurance will now start voting. Or I shouldn't say they will start, but if they did start voting and they voted for the party that put that bill into practice, whether the bill is good or bad, that's irrelevant right at the second. Whether it's good or bad is irrelevant. They'll vote for that party that put it in there. So my question is this: good or bad? Let's say it's bad because I think it is. That doesn't mean it is, but that's my opinion. When is the Republicans going to say, okay, it's bad, here's something better?
Well, there are a lot of ideas out there, and there have been a lot of ideas out there, but I think the thing is I don't know, how can I say this to be perfectly honest here without bullshitting or going around the bush here? Americans in a whole are lazy. I'm not being unpatriotic right here. I'm just trying to be a little bit real right now. Right. And where I'm going with this is that we all could find a way to insure ourselves in the system that we have right now. We all could. But I'm not saying everybody in this world, but there are people that I know that could afford their own insurance and are still getting Medicaid just because they can and they want to save money. So my whole point behind all of this is that no matter whose idea it is, Republican or Democrat, I'm personally against any sort of universal health care. Okay. It's more of a personal responsibility thing. That's the way our parents and our grandparents, were raised to be with that. You wanted, to be able to see or needed anything done medically, then you needed to make sure you had the money to get your insurance in order to do that.
Right. But let me ask you this. And you're a gentleman that has kids. I know that. We've talked about, the kids you have. What if you didn't have the money to pay for the health care? Let's say you got 2 kids, 3 kids, whatever, how many you have. Let's say they're all sick at one time. Let's say it becomes and God forbid I don't mean this. I'll use someone else because I don't like to use you when I'm saying that. Use someone else. Let's say it becomes a life or death situation and you can't get it.
Well, see, now wait. I mean, I must clarify that when my daughter, who is now 14, was young, that did make me a very young father. I was 18 when she was born. I was on Medicaid for 2 years, actually. So I'm not, I understand. And to answer your question is, in those instances, that's what there should be some sort of system in there to help protect human life. I agree. Okay. But also, me being different than most people, and what I did was, yes, I used the 2 years of the healthcare helping me get through, but then I was able to, in those 2 years, be able to save up the money to get a good plan that I was able to pay for, so that we have our own insurance. Because although Medicaid does cover, the things that you need, I wanted to be able to have more choices. One of the things that me and you have spoken about before, which comes with choices and having your own insurance, is the way my kids' shots were administered.
Right.
That's something that I'm huge on. You know how I feel about that. We've been there in every way.
Right.
I refuse to get any shots for a very, very, very long time.
Right.
Because
that's
just
your
how
personal
I feel.
choice. That's your personal choice. And
but if you're on Medicaid nowadays, you don't really have that choice. Not saying that you... how they'll put it to you is, if you don't get them their shots, you are somehow being a negligent parent. and then they will try to get that done any other way. So that's where, me having my own insurance comes in handy, because now that he's about to go to school here in a little bit, I want to do the homeschool, and doesn't look like it's going to happen because Queen is not going down with this. Me and you have spoken about this before,
Right.
But if he goes in any sort of area, there's a certain series that we will have to get by law.
Right.
So now I have control over that when that has to come up. I have full control. Me and my doctor have talked about that, how we're going to do it, the way it's going to be done, what to use, what not to use,
Right.
what shots he's getting, what shots he's not. These are choices you won't have on Medicaid.
Right. Hey, Dino, I'm going to take a quick commercial, and we'll continue this right after this commercial, okay?
Okay.
All right.
You are listening to Big DC Show with your host, the Big DC, here on Spreaker.com.
But don't make the dollar hollers. The dollar hollers. Dollar holla! All right, so what the fuck? We need to do a promo. Promotion. Right now we're talking about absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. Need a promo. It's interesting, though, if you think about it. It's not interesting because it's not a promo. I bet you the next person who might listen to this will be like, really? What are these guys even talking about? No, listen, we need a promo for the show. A show promo. By this point, we've hit record and they don't even know what the fuck the promo's about. It's about whatever we want it to be. I mean, maybe in particular, a certain show you might listen to? Oh, that's the whole point. It's a show that I actually do. You do? Well, I mean, what could this show possibly be called that I might listen to it on? Well, it's a show about crazy things. Crazy things? Such as? Well, the crazy thoughts that you have in your mind. Holy shit. Well, okay, crazy. Suppose like you see a woman walking down the street and she's with her man, but she looked kind of mad at the man. And then you like make up this whole story in your mind, like, oh like shit, whole scenario? Like, she just got done fucking the other man and she's mad that she's with this dude. Nice.
Yeah, it's like,
that's complicated. That's fucked up, man.
But that's crazy thoughts.
That is crazy.
So I was thinking of, maybe I should like name it something like, about having a crazy mind.
Maybe you could call it Dino's Crazy Mind.
That could work.
I think it just might.
All right. So check out Dino's Crazy Mind.
See this.
Dino's Fuck You Network here on Spreaker.com, where we don't suffer from insanity. We enjoy every moment of it.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Listening to the Chris Top program burns more calories than setting a fat kid on fire.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back. I am Big DC. You're listening to the Big DC Show with my special guest, Dino Simpson. Welcome back, Dino.
Absolutely, man. Good times.
Okay, continuing on with the discussion we was just having, you was talking about, how, when you're on Medicaid, you don't get the choice on whether to have your kids get
where I
shots
was
and
going to
things.
go with that was that, see, now this whole universal healthcare thing sounds great. But remember, anytime something like that happens, and anytime liberties are taken away in any country, I don't care, just search history. Anytime there's any sort of liberties that are taken away from the people, it has been passed by fear.
Right.
And it's the fear of everybody, oh, well, we're not going to have insurance and we're all going to die. And what are we going to do that has passed this bill? Because we need to have every American covered. You heard that for what, 8 years or
Right.
so? And I don't care what political party it was.
Right.
It was something you heard there. And I just want to make sure, to me, it seems like, yeah, it's a great thing. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that can have insurance, but I personally happen to believe that they have the ability now. You know what I mean? Let's look at, this is where we have to start getting into, our expenses as Americans and living inside or outside of our means in most cases.
Right.
I'm someone that happens to live inside my means. I'm not where my buddies got the brand new car almost every couple of years because they got a loan that they took when they're 16 that they're still paying interest on because they keep rolling it over.
Right.
They got the, expensive pool in their yard that they got on a credit card. They got all the fancy new toys. I don't need these things. I did
Right.
just get a new computer, but I was able to pay cash by saving and budgeting that. It took me 6 months to come up with that money. You know what I mean? But my whole point behind it is I live within my means. So like you said
Right.
before, where what if something were to happen to Jason? I know you're trying to take it off of me, and I'm okay with that. Like I respect where you're going with it, but I'm just gonna bring it there. If something were to happen to him, and say if it was a life-death situation, I know without a doubt, if there's anything I have of value, it's going to be sold, and he's going to get what he needs to be done. And this is where I question a lot of other Americans, where I don't know if that's the case. Like, look at the fact where these people would rather have, money to, I think it's some of the crazy things people do. I know people that their pool league gets more money a week than their grocery budget gets.
Right. Yep.
And I can't feel bad for them when they're telling me, well, my son needs this and I wasn't able to get it. What the hell, man? I just saw you at the fucking bar
Right.
spending $80. And that's what I mean by living inside their means. There's people that could afford their own insurance, and this would not be the big problem that it's being sold to us as it is. But here in America, we have commercials, we have propaganda all day long that tells us if you don't have bigger, better, or newer, somehow you're not the coolest guy on the block.
Right. So basically, it's good to have it only when you absolutely need it and there's no other way to get it because you can't afford it. But the minute you can afford it, you need to, do it yourself.
Exactly, because
need to be
so
saving.
many other things that come along with that. You know what I mean? It's not, like I said, yes, there is the bare minimum there, and I know there are a lot of people that need it. But like I said before, I know people that have been on it for 5-6 years and have been able to afford it for at least 3 years. But as long as they can keep hiding something or doing whatever they do to keep getting accepted, they even tell me, they're like, well, if the government's going to give me the money, I'm like, but that's the fucking problem. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I actually did a show a while back called Your Rights and Responsibilities to Your Rights. And I believe it's every American's right to have affordable health care, to have health care. But I also believe it's every American's responsibility that when you can afford it, you need to pay it yourself.
Yeah, but not just, insurance, but in other things.
Right,
yes,
exactly. Everything, basically.
You know what I mean? Like, I know people, I'm not trying to beat up on this now. It seems like I kind of got to here, and I apologize for it, but,
you're good.
it just goes along with the point that I know people who are, on budget plans with Central Hudson when they had the money to pay that, but instead they, went out and bought the new car and they needed $2,000 for a new payment.
Right.
Our down payment. And wait, what was wrong with the other car? Nothing. It was a trade-in value. What are you talking? And that's, it just drives me crazy. And that's, like I said, we create these problems. And this is where we as people are there. There's a responsibility where the government is taking our rights, but then there's also this part where we are giving them our rights. Right. And that's what drives me crazy even more when I sit by and watch people just not even care.
Right.
About their right.
We have the rights to these things, but we have the responsibility to our rights, to exercise our rights, to keep our rights. And if we don't, we're going to lose them.
Exactly. Well, just like look at even the shot thing, right now. Like, how dead set against I was to get my kid a shot. I did not want to do it.
Exactly.
But then next thing I know, I find out that even if he doesn't end up going, even if I do end up homeschooling him, but I know that we were talking about getting him into after school sports or stuff like that so he could still socialize. I'd need to have at least 2 of those shots in order to do that. And now, how did that come about? You know what I'm saying? Because a parent somewhere didn't take the responsible way of knowing, hey, maybe my kid's really sick. I shouldn't bring him somewhere where he's going to infect hundreds of thousands.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
And now because some parent made that dumb decision a long, long time ago, and a bunch of them did, now we have to have mandatory shots. And someone like me has to, what am I going to do? Exclude my son from all of society now because of my belief? Now it starts,
right.
Stops becoming my belief and starts becoming his life effect.
Now, do I agree. There is one thing I wanted to touch on real quick. I heard, I don't remember what show it was on. But someone it's one of the shows here on Spreaker. They actually compared America to Nazi Germany, and what do you think about that?
There are parallels. You'd be dumb if you studied the history of Germany and if you studied kind of our recent history, and I'd say the last 10 years, or I'd say probably 9/11, since 9/11 to now, you could see some parallels in it. You can never go exactly, no matter who you are, what the situation is, because when there are different times, there will always be different people. It's just how. Right. That's why we have generation gaps in people. Not just years I'm talking about, but you put a 50-year-old and a 30-year-old together, they might not have as good of a conversation as if you put two 30-year-olds together. You know what I mean? Right.
The reason why I asked that is I actually have a couple of neighbors who are actually Holocaust survivors. They're actually Jewish people. Mm-hmm. And they were in Germany before Hitler took power. And of course, there are a couple of them that got brought into all this. They've seen everything. They went through the concentration camps. They were completely separated from each other. Ended up after the war and everything, got back together. They're telling me that they don't see anything like that.
Well, that's a pretty powerful statement, and for in itself, I can't argue that. But it depends on how much they're paying attention. Depends on
I understand what
things like that. But me being the person I am, and me really being into conspiracies the way I am, and believing a lot of these conspiracy theories are actually fact. and need to be
Right.
dropped, the word of conspiracy. Just knowing the stuff that I know, there are, I'll get one small example here. And once again, this is all about what you believe, right? And
Right.
I happen to believe that 9/11 wasn't done exactly the way that they're being, telling me that it happened.
Right.
I don't know exactly how, but there's a lot of holes in that story, and I'm able to point it out. But if you look at that, and then I don't want to say this the wrong way. So instead of doing that, it was basically the Congress building in Germany, the Ragstad or something like that. I know I'm saying it right. But there was a fire there that was set by the Nazi, which of course they didn't know at the time, was set by the Nazi Party, and they blamed it on the Jews, on the communists, if you will. And that's how they became in power. They used fear and they used a lie in order to get what they wanted. And in this case, let's just say you're someone like me who doesn't really believe 9/11 happened exactly the way that we're being told. If you follow the blood trail from 9/11 on, look at all the other wars and stuff that
Right.
we've gotten ourselves involved in by the legislation passed because of 9/11.
Right. I'll tell you what, I don't know how many people out there have actually done this. I have myself. I actually got my hands on a copy of it. Hitler actually wrote a book when he was in prison in Germany before he came into power called Mein Kampf. Now, it's been translated into many different languages. Some actual public libraries here in America have copies of it. Ours does. I actually read that book, and he also wrote another one, a little lesser known. I can't remember the title of it, and I'm trying to get a copy of it. I wish I could remember the title of it. But in Mein Kampf, Hitler actually starts laying out how he's actually going to take control of Germany, and he literally follows it step by step.
Well, see, now I've never read either of the books. I have heard of Mein Kampf. Actually, it was a lot of controversy years and years ago about a couple book reports that were being written about that. So I've heard of it, never actually read it. But, the only thing that I can say about that is I would invite your listeners or you to go and look up. It's a government file, and I believe it was released under the Freedom of Information Act, so I'm sure you can find it. But it was the hang on. Oh, I'm sorry, I had it in my mind before. It was something. God, I'm sorry. I hate doing this on air.
It's okay.
Project for a New America, I believe it is.
Okay.
I'll tell you what I'll do for you and your listeners, because I hate being inaccurate about these things. Normally I'm right on. I will post the link to this on your show wall afterwards, so you can get a little bit of proof. But basically, long story short is, if you read that was a think tank that was put together in the early 90s or late 90s. I'm not together sure. All the stuff you can find out. Involved a lot of big wigs in government, Dick Cheney being one of them, and all that, where they basically, on the cover, first of all, of this report is a picture of the World Trade Center in crosshairs. I'm just throwing that out. This was done in the 90s. And they said that in order to get the political change that they needed, or they felt America needed, they would need another big event. And in their quotes, quote unquote, another Pearl Harbor. So and that's 9/11. Pretty much... And this was laid out in a document before 9/11, but on that document just happened to be a picture of the World Trade Centers in crosshairs. So I'm just saying, take it for what it's worth, and I'll get the link so people can actually see that that's not a made-up thing and it's an actual report. It's
definitely. I advise
stuff.
everyone to read it. Definitely, yeah. Not to cut you short or anything, but we're actually less than a minute, about a minute and a half.
Wow.
It's been a great discussion. Actually, I lost about a minute and a half to start of the show. I thought I was actually playing my introduction, and I wasn't. I had my sound card. I actually had the sound card of the computer set to the sound card of the computer instead of my mixing board, so nothing was going in. But Dino, I want to thank you for coming on the show. As always, you've always been very informative, very respectful. The most knowledgeable person I know on Spreaker, basically.
Well, I appreciate it, and I've had a lot of fun. And like I said, I'll make sure to get that link up there. Project for a New American. She almost had the name, but I'll get that link up there for everybody, and all that fun stuff. But long story short, here, Republicans, Democrats, I think they're all wrong. I think we need to jail all the politicians, start all over again, give the power back to the people.
I agree 100%. Everyone, that was Dino Simpson from Dino's Crazy Mind from the Fuck You Network. I am the Big DC. I will see you this coming Monday at 3 p.m. I'll see you. I'm out.